We are experiencing a time of transformation. How can we begin to rewrite our story? I'm Chelsea, and this is the Amara Ritual podcast. Join me as we journey together through our inner landscape and begin to create outer change. So it's happening. I am starting a podcast. To be honest, this is something that has been on my heart and mind for years now. Years. So why this podcast? Why now? I am not alone in feeling this, but I truly believe not only have I witnessed it outside of myself, I've witnessed it happening within myself, physically, spiritually, energetically. We are moving through a time of immense change and transformation. I truly believe that we are at a turning point, and we have the opportunity to rewrite the narrative in our stories. My name is Chelsea, and welcome to the Amara Ritual podcast. This is a space where I will be sharing intuitive insights, experiences from not only my own story, but from others to share. Because it's important, especially at this time, it's important to share our stories. Because in our stories, we realize that we're not alone. It's healing. Our stories are healing. We gain courage, empowerment, confidence. Storytelling is one of the most ancient forms of communication. It's an art form, I believe. Stories have the capacity to allow us to empathize to the point of feeling so much grief that we find ourselves on the floor. Stories also have the capacity to bring us so much joy and laughter and feel this fire lit beneath us. It's funny because I'm using a microphone, and while yes, this is a mic, there's a story behind this mic. So I was living in Hawaii, and it was my last night before I was about to move back to Seattle, where I'm from, where I grew up, born and raised. And on the last night, I was saying goodbye to a dear friend, and she handed me this microphone like this. And she had no idea that I had wanted to start a podcast, that it was this little whisper, this intuitive whisper, these little nudges that we get from our intuition. That oftentimes we think, oh, I'll get back to that. I'll do that later. I'll do that when I have time. But as many of us know, when we don't listen to the whispers, those whispers become nudges, and those nudges then become pushes. But she handed me this microphone. And in that moment, it was so validating. It was like this symbol of, all right, how much more evidence do you need? It's being handed to you on a silver platter. Go for it. So I went home and the mic sat in my closet. It sat in my closet collecting dust. And, me and this microphone would have this silent dialogue where I would open my closet and we would look at each other. But a year later, I still hadn't began. Why do we do this? I had realized the only thing holding me back was my own resistance, my own fear of doing it right, fear of doing it wrong. Who am I to share? But why? Why do we let this resistance get in the way of something that we know will bring us so much joy? That we know our intuition is guiding us towards. So I began. And it's wild because when I plugged in the microphone for the first time, I felt the presence of all of my ancestors, generation after generation, standing behind me. I have my Persian ancestors on one side, And then I have on the other side my Scottish, Welsh, that region, and they're all cheering me on. They're all applauding. And I feel this. I just feel this sense that I'm not alone. I get this sense that this isn't even about me. Like, yes, this is a podcast that I'm speaking, that I'm creating, but I am merely a vessel. That this is our podcast and the listener's podcast. It is not mine. And I saw how all of our ancestors, most of our ancestors, did not have the opportunity to create, to use their voice, to speak their truth, to live from their innate essence of who they are. Think about it. Most did not have the opportunity or even the platform that we do now. And so I feel that presence, not only my own ancestors, but all of ours. And I keep hearing, we are the cycle breakers. That is part of why we're here, is to step through this new threshold. Those of us that have this opportunity to share, if we feel called to. Sometimes there's nothing holding us back except for the fear or our own resistance, which, to be quite honest, it makes sense. How could we not have those feelings when we have the memories of our lineage of everyone who came before us who did not have the opportunity, or if they did try, they would be killed? It is ingrained in us as survival. So it makes sense. And I think it allows us to have more grace when we do feel those feelings arise. My Persian grandmother, while I never met her, I feel her presence. And there was one day where I felt her presence for the very first time. And she said, "Use your voice for those who cannot. Use your voice for those who cannot." And it hit me. And I don't know if you can hear the roosters in the background, but the roosters, they're using their voice. I mean, the roosters are singing all day, all morning. You can hear them in the background. It's funny. And my Persian grandmother, this is a woman who had no rights. Women in Iran still have no rights. They are not even considered a full human, to be quite honest. So how do we, for those that feel called, show up? To share our story. To feel the courage, enough courage to express ourselves to our fullest. To live what I call live from our soul. You could say live from your most innate being. We don't have to start a podcast or show up in certain ways or how others are showing up. It really comes down to these little moments, the little nuances in our relationships, our workplaces, with ourselves, how we connect with and speak with ourselves. That is how we are breaking cycles, is through our choices and actions and embodiment and way of being. And then maybe, just maybe, the generations after us won't have to move through so much fear. Or maybe we'll have new systems, new understandings and awareness of who we are as people, as humans. What I'm seeing is this image of a rug. This rug is being lifted, and we have this newfound awareness. We can see all the dirt and dust below this rug that has been hidden. That's what's happening, not only collectively on a mass scale, but internally within the most micro moments in our lives, within ourselves. we have this unfolding awareness at play. And I truly think that that's what makes us human, is our awareness compared to maybe other things. Who knows? But now that we have this growing awareness, what do we do with it? Do we continue to go back to normal? Or do we say, okay, now is the pivot point. I'm seeing this threshold. I'm literally seeing this threshold, and we can go this way, or we can go that way, or we can go up or down. There's many directions we can take, but the point is that we have the opportunity to take a new direction. How beautiful. How beautiful. But as we take a new direction, let's be honest, so many things come up. We have to move through so much courage. Sometimes we're like, what the heck am I doing? Why am I going down this road? So this podcast is really, I see it as a bridge, as a vessel for all of us that are taking those new directions within our lives, within our communities, within ourselves. To remember that we're not alone, to remember that we're all figuring this out together, that yes, while I'm speaking and sharing from my experiences, that I'm literally walking this path beside everybody. We all are. And that while we are each on our own individual journey, we are a puzzle piece, a piece to the puzzle, this grander puzzle. We are part of a whole. And I think that's where we're at, where we have this awareness of how these systems and structures and ways of being are completely unsustainable. And they are literally like trying to cling on as long as they can. But guess what? It can't continue much longer. When you go to work, for one example, and maybe you're all in the workplace and you're working long hours, maybe you're feeling burnt out, maybe you're asking yourself those questions like, does it really have to be this way? Why is it like this? But you go along with it because everyone else is doing it, and it's just the way it is. You know how many people growing up told me it's just the way it is, Chelsea? When I would ask why, and they say it's just the way it is. And I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be that way. And if everyone is feeling this way, imagine if everyone starts communicating about it and speaking about it. And then from there, we realize we're not alone. And it's not that we're creating change to create harm or be destructive. We're creating change ideally from this place of wanting to do better, wanting to feel empowered. This word sustainable just keeps coming through, sustainable. How do we reconnect with our true nature? Because right now, we are disconnected. And as a society, I think moving against the current when we could be flowing with it. True change, I don't know if it can really happen outside of ourselves. True change happens from within, and from there it ripples out. I'm seeing an image of a house, and you can't necessarily build a home without the foundation first. So right now we're building the foundation. Maybe we're in demo. Maybe we've got the blueprints and we see it all mapped out. We haven't started actually building it yet. Wherever we are in the construction process, that is okay. Before I did this work, I was an interior designer. So there might be a lot of construction metaphors thrown around, but it's true, We can't pass this step. It's part of the process. So here we are. That's why I'm starting this podcast, for all of us that are on this journey. A lot of the work that I do is in reclaiming our soul essence, our inner power, and how to truly listen to our inner wisdom. Because as we're creating, or should I say co-creating, our intuition and inner wisdom is truly our guide. It is our guide. And it is what we hold on to in those moments while we are co-creating, when we are stepping out of the box, doing something new, maybe moving through those fear thresholds or thinking, what the heck am I doing? I know that this feels right and I should be doing this other thing that people tell me, but I'm gonna do it, and it doesn't make sense on paper, but the more that I follow this inner voice, the more that it unfolds magically. So for the past years, I've been on this journey of uncovering not only myself, but navigating life from this place. And my life has changed exponentially. And it's not to say that this is some destination that we're trying to reach, but I truly feel that when we are whole from within, that is our power. That we can ride the waves, the cycles of life, right? We're not immune to that. That we can make choices and create based on us, on who we are, rather than what someone thinks we should be, which is how I navigated life most of my life, to be honest. I was operating from this place of what I thought I should be doing based on what others expected, based on what society and culture expected. And everything started to change when I started operating from this new place of what works for me, what works for my family. And not in a selfish way, but in a way of when our cup is full, we can fill others' cups as well, or it ripples and extends out beyond us. And one person at a time, right? Like that foundation, we're building the foundation within us. It ripples and expands out, especially for those who do not have the same opportunity to show up in the privilege that some of us do. So this podcast is really about sharing experiences and stories and intuitive insights of what is happening. And to remember that we are not alone, that we're moving through this together. A little backstory on the name Amara. It's Sanskrit for everlasting or eternal. And ritual, to me, is this concept of coming to something with intention and devotion. So Amara Ritual is essentially this everlasting experience of life that's constantly unfolding, right? For each of us. Because many of us, let's be honest, it feels like we're relearning how to walk, how to talk, how to be. And we are experiencing inevitably this rebirth, this new beginning. But new beginnings never come without the death process. Sometimes things need to crumble in order to make space for the new. And sometimes our contraction is leading us to our expansion. These are universal principles that we can apply to our life so that we have more grace and understanding as we move through it. Again, working with the current rather than flowing against it. So thank you for tuning in to this podcast, and let's journey together. Let's feel empowered to follow those whispers of our intuition, to remember and come back to ourselves. And let's chart this new path as the cycle breakers that we are and that we came here to be. Thank you, and I'll see you next time on the Amara Ritual podcast.